SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
රින් සුපිරි එලියා වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 160යි.
Tonight, standing together. India's Foreign Secretary reiterates his government's intention to walk with Sri Lanka through thick and thin.
My in-depth discussions during this visit will contribute towards jointly confronting the common economic and security challenges.
On the personal initiative of the Prime Minister of India, a special fund has been established of approximately $15 million.
Lower energy costs. Yugadhanavi LNG plant deal taken up in Parliament, where government ministers say the benefits to the public could be tremendous. A long list. An unprecedented charge sheet detailing over 23,000 charges were read out to 25 Easter Sunday terror attack suspects today. Words to live by. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assures European Union delegation of democratic mechanism to address pressing issues. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Monday, the 4th of October, 2021.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයිෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වලකයි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Eknaik. Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has told the European Union delegation today that the government intends to pursue democratic mechanism to provide solutions to existing problems in Sri Lanka. During the talks with the EU delegation, the President added that measures are underway to amend the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which has become a point of contention with the international community, especially with the EU.
The members of the European delegation that arrived in Sri Lanka to assess the granting of the GSP Plus concession to the island called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at his residence in Mirihana today. During the meeting, President had ensured that Sri Lanka, being one of the oldest democracies in Asia, will provide solutions to the problems via a democratic mechanism. The delegation also portrayed the importance of a timely solution for the country's Prevention of Terrorism Act. In response, President Gotabaya has said that he has instructed the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General to appoint relevant committees and take steps to amend the relevant clauses of the Act. The President had also assured that steps will be taken to act in accordance with the existing global agreements on human rights. While speaking on the steps taken to develop the northern and eastern regions of the country that suffered from the 30-year-old war, he had added that steps were also taken to provide compensation and relief to the families of the disappeared persons. Further, President Gotabaya had told the EU delegation that a process is underway to create a productive state service by adopting the technical know-how of developed countries. He had also said that the private sector will be further developed, which will in turn contribute to the country's economic development. The EU delegation had then praised the President's plan on taking the country forward.
Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, who is currently on a 4-day official visit to Sri Lanka, says that the Indian government will stand with Sri Lanka and support the post-COVID recovery efforts. While addressing the inauguration ceremony of several projects funded by the Indian government today, he highlighted the importance of working together to strengthen economic partnership at a time in which both countries are affected by the ongoing pandemic. Addressing the same event, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Piris said that Sri Lanka is committed to strengthening and deepening bilateral relations between the two countries.
Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla called on Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Temple Trees this morning. During the meeting, both the parties had discussed a number of arenas of mutual cooperation, including the further strengthening of bilateral relations, ongoing projects, and the promotion of Buddhist ties. Another topic of discussion had been the resumption of tourism, as the Indian Foreign Secretary spoke of the importance of resuming connectivity. After concluding the visit, Shringla joined the ceremony organised at the Temple Trees. Several development projects funded by the Indian government were inaugurated virtually by the Indian Foreign Secretary during the event. The inauguration of the newly built buildings at the Saraswati Central College in Pusallava and the Vaddamarachi Central Ladies College were among them. Further, 1,235 houses built under the Phase 3 of the Indian Housing Project were handed over to the estate community in the districts of Gaul, Badulla, Matale and Nuwara.
I'm happy to see the progress in our bilateral engagement across different spheres. The high-level visits, in particular, the state visits of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to India in November 2019 and February 2020 respectively, have given fresh impetus to our relationship. During the COVID pandemic, India kept its air space open for travel for specific and urgent medical needs of Sri Lanka. With the easing of the situation in both our countries, it may be opportune for us to work on connectivity initiatives like the Jaffna to Chennai flight, ferry services between Karaikal and Kanke Santhurai, and Dhanushkodi and Talai Manar, and the Buddhist corridor with the new international airport at Kushinagar. The Government of India will also support the development of facilities for tourists and pilgrims at sites associated with the Ramayan circuit in Sri Lanka. Tourism is an important part of our people-to-people cooperation, and we would be happy to work with the Sri Lankan government on taking forward that connect as the situation eases in COVID. We will stand with the government of Sri Lanka in its efforts for post-COVID recovery. As we seek rapid socio-economic recovery for our respective countries, it is important to work together to strengthen our economic partnership and to deepen our time-tested bilateral ties founded on the principles of mutual benefit, mutual understanding, and a common purpose defined by good neighborly relations. I am confident that in my in-depth discussions during this visit will contribute towards jointly confronting the common economic and security challenges and to assess the opportunities and chart a new collaborative way forward.
It is a bilateral relationship which straddles every field of human endeavor and human activity. But if you ask me to indicate my own view as to the principal component of this relationship, I would answer without hesitation that it consists of connectivity, people-to-people connectivity between Sri Lanka and India. Connectivity which has taken a variety of forms, not only connectivity by air and by sea, but digital connectivity, electrical grid connectivity. All of this has brought together the peoples of our two countries. The Foreign Secretary referred to the inaugural flight to Kushinagar, the international Buddhist airport of India. This is a visit that will take place on the 20th of October. We consider that to be a landmark event. On the personal initiative of Sri Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, a special fund has been established of approximately $15 million for the purpose of supporting Buddhist temples, monasteries, kovils, and so on. And the Indian High Commissioner told me that he has received instructions from his Prime Minister to ensure that a minimum of $3 million is spent each year on these projects. We are resolutely committed to the strengthening, the deepening of this relationship.
Indian Foreign Secretary Shringla meanwhile also called on Minister of Finance Basil Rajapaksa at the Ministry of Finance. During the meeting, the Finance Minister had praised the support extended by India as a regional power during the ongoing pandemic situation. The Finance Minister had gone on to say that the expectation of Sri Lanka is strengthening the existing relationships with India further with a great understanding. Shringla meanwhile had told the Finance Minister that he will look to the possibility of encouraging Indian businessmen to invest in Sri Lanka. In the meantime, the Indian Foreign Secretary was in Jaffna last evening. During the visit, he inspected the Jaffna Cultural Centre, which was built with grant assistance from the Indian government. The Indian Foreign Secretary had then held discussions with several political representatives in the Northern Province. Northern Province Governor P.S.M. Charles, Chairman of the Northern Provincial Council, C.V.K. Sivagnanam, Leader of the Tamil National People's Front Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam, and former Provincial Councillor M.K. Shivalingam were among those who took part in the talks.
Parliamentary sittings today were dominated by the issue of the government's deal with US company New Fortress Energy for 40% of the Yugadanavi power plant and for the construction of a liquid natural gas terminal. With members of the opposition critiquing the government for allegedly selling off the country's power resources to a foreign entity, Minister of Power Gamini Lokuge revealed that the switch to LNG-based power could see a massive drop in generation costs of up to 5 rupees per unit.
ඔබතුමාලා දේශප්‍රේමීත්වයේ රට විකුණන්න නැහැ කියන කාරණේ ආපුවාන් ඔබතුමා කියන්න මේ කොමිස් තරම් මේ මුදල රට දීලා කොහෙද විදුලි බල අමාත්‍යාංශය ලාභ ලබන මේ ලාභ ටික ඔක්කොම ඇමරිකාවට යන්නේ කවුරු එමතුමනි
LNG වලට ගියාම දැන් රුපියල් 21කට ගන්න විදුලි බලය රුපියල් 16ට වඩා අඩු වෙනවා. ඒ වාසිය එන්නේ කාටද? රටට. ඒකට විරුද්ධද? LNG වලට පරිවර්තනය කරාම දවිතෙල් වලින් දුවන යන්ත්‍ර රුපියල් 21ක් වෙන කොස්ට් එක වෙන එක රුපියල් 16ට වඩා අඩු වෙනවා. ඒක හොඳද නරකද? ඒකට විරුද්ධද? අපි ආණ්ඩුවක් පිටවනකොට රටට ප්‍රකාශනයක් නිකුත් කරා. අපි මේ ප්‍රකාශනයේ තියෙනවා මේ රට දියුණු කරන්න අපි රාජ්‍ය සහ පෞද්ගලයන් එකතු වෙච්ච ව්‍යාපාර ආරම්භ කරනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ආණ්ඩුව. තේ සංස්ථාව තිබෙන ලංකාවට අයිති තනි ආයතනයක්. අපි බාර ගන්නකොට කොහොමද තිබුණේ? තේ සංස්ථාව දෙකට බෙදලා කොළොන්නාව ටර්මිනල් කියලා ආයතනයක් ආරම්භ කළා. IOC කියන ඉන්දියානු සමාගම ගෙනල්ලා ලංකාවේ හොඳම සෙට් 100ක් IOC සමාගමට දීලා තෙල් බෙදා හැරීමේ අයිතිය IOC සමාගමත් කොටස්කාරයෝ කරගත්තා. කොළොන්නාවේ ටර්මිනල් එකේ සෙට් 3න් එකක් IOC සමාගමට දුන්නා. අද 3න් 2ක් අයිති ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට. නැත්තම් 3න් 1යි අපිට අයිති වෙන්නේ. තමුන්නාන්සලා ටෙන්ඩර් කරනදලා දුන්නේ. ඒක අපේ කාලේ හිටපු ඇමතිවරු ඉන්නවා විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා ඔක්කොම ඉන්නවා. කරු ජයසූරිය මහත්තයා තමයි ඒ කාලේ ඇමතුමා. තෙල් ටැංකිය ඉන්දියාවට පමණක් දෙන්න ඕනයි කියලා ගිවිසුම අත්සන් කරේ කවුද? මේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයා තමුන්නාන්සලාගේ ආණ්ඩුවේ නායකයෙක්ද? දැන් ඒ ගිවිසුම් කාලේ අවසන් වෙලා දෙවෙනි ගිවිසුමට ඇවිල්ලා තිනවා. ඒක පිළිබඳව තමුන්නාන්සලාත් කියනවා අත්සන් කරන්න එපා. මුලින් එක දීලා පාර කපලා දැන් කියනවා අත්සන් කරන්න එපයි කියලා. කෙරවල පිටිය විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයේ අයිති සමාගමක් නෙමෙයි. නමුත් ඒ ආයතනය 2035 වෙනකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට අයිති වෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව තව 4500ක ඩීසල් බලාගාරයක් ඇති කරනවා. ඒකටත් ඒ අය ආයෝජනය කරනවා.
ඔබතුමා ඉන්දියාවට ඊළඟ අවුරුද්දේ ඉන්දියාවේ කතන්දර ඉවර වෙනවා. හැබැයි ඔබතුමා අනිත් තෙල් ටැංකි 75ම ඉන්දියාවට දෙනවද නැද්ද කියලා මේ සභාවට ඉස්තිර වශයෙන් කියන්නේ.
හෙක්ටර් අප්පුවාමේ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා කතා කරන එක බොහොම හොඳයි. කතා කරන්න කලින් කරුණු හැදෑරීමක් කරලා කතා කරනවා නම් එතුමාට ඡන්දෙ දුන්න ජනතාවට කරන ගෞරවයක් විදිහට මම සලකනවා. මොකද මේ තෙල් ටැංකි 100ම ඉන්දියාවට තමුන්නාන්සලා දීලා ඉවරයි. අපිට අමුතුවෙන් දෙන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. 100ම දුන්නේ 2003 අස්සම් කරපු ගිවිසුම බලන්න. පවතින ගිවිසුම වසර 35කට ආයෙත් ඒක ඉවර වුණාත් ආයෙත් ඉන්දියාවටම තමයි අර මම කිව්ව ඉන්දු ලංකා ගිවිසුමේ සදාටම ඉන්දියාවට දෙන්න බැඳිලා ඉවරයි. අපි මේ උත්සාහ කරන්නේ තමුන්නාන්සලා සදාටම ඉන්දියාවට දුන්න දේ යලි ලංකාව සතු කරගන්නයි.
පහුගිය දිනක LNG බලාගාර සම්බන්ධව රෑ 12:06ට ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකක් අත්සන් කරා කියලා කතා වෙනවා. අපි තාම දැක්කේ නැහැ. එතකොට මේ ගිවිසුමේ තියෙන කාරණා ගැන අද රට තාම හරියට දන්නේ නැහැ. ඔබතුමා මෙහි තෙල් ටැංකි ටික බේර ගන්න උත්සාහ කරනකොට LNG බලාගාර නිර්මාණය වෙලා LNG සැපවීමේ ඒකාධිකාරයක් ඇමරිකානු සමාගම නිර්මාණය කර ගැනීමේ අනතුරක් තියද?
LNG සම්බන්ධයෙන් ආණ්ඩුවට අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයට පත්‍රිකාවක් ඉදිරිපත් වුණා. ඒ වගේම අපි උපාය මාර්ගික වශයෙන් වැදගත් සම්පත් රැක ගැනීම වෙනුවෙන් ඉන්නවා. පෞද්ගලික අංශයේ බලශක්තිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් ව්‍යාපාර වලට සම්බන්ධ වෙනකොට අපි විරුද්ධ නැහැ. මේ 140ක් කොටස් මිලදී ගැනීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් මට නම් ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මගේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති වලට ඒකේ කිසිම බාධාවක් නැහැ. අද අපේ රටේ මිනි හයිඩ්‍රෝ තියෙනවා 100% පෞද්ගලික අංශයට අයිති. ඊළඟට සූර්ය විදුලි බලාගාර, සුළං විදුලි බලාගාර තියෙනවා 100% පෞද්ගලික අංශයට අයිති. ඒ 140 නම් කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. ඔව් ඇමරිකානු සමාගමට ගෑස් ඒකාධිකාරය ලබා දීම අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තමයි. එය අපේ බලශක්තිය සුරක්ෂිතතාවයට බලපාන්නේ කොහොමද? යහපාලනයකට බලපාන්නේ කොහොමද? රාජතාන්ත්‍රික සබඳතාවලට බලපාන්නේ කොහොමද? වගේම අපි කැණීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන මන්නාරම් ද්‍රෝණීය ගෑස් නිධි සඳහා ආයෝජකයන් ආකර්ෂණය කිරීම බලපාන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා මම අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයට නිරීක්ෂණ දෙකක් ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කාරණා අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලය ඇතුළේ තිබේවි.
Big 3.
Now, the leak of more than 11 million financial records called the Pandora Papers has shed light on how the super rich of the world, including celebrities, billionaires, politicians and sports stars, have used shell companies to take their, at times, ill-gotten gains off the radar. 2 Sri Lankan nationals too have been exposed in the leak, namely former Minister Nirupama Rajapaksa and her spouse Thirukumar Narayasan. who have been shown to have amassed $160 million and have used offshore shell companies to invest in exclusive foreign properties and artwork.
After more than a year of sifting through a trove of 2.9 terabytes of data released in what has been titled the Pandora Papers leak, names and details of how the world's richest store their wealth have been let out of the bag by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The high-profile names include more than 330 politicians and 130 Forbes list billionaires, and it also includes celebrities, fraudsters, drug dealers, royalty, and even leaders of religious groups. Even here in Sri Lanka, the inclusion of the names of two prominent Sri Lankans, namely former Minister Nirupama Rajapaksa and her husband Thirukumar Nadesan, raised many an eyebrow. According to the leaked documents, Rajapaksa and Nadesan were exposed for their having used shell companies established in secrecy jurisdictions to purchase luxury apartments in London and Sydney, buy artwork, and also make investments the world over. However, what it also revealed was how the shell companies were also used by the duo to obtain extremely lucrative consultancy contracts from foreign companies hoping to do business in Sri Lanka with the Sri Lankan government. Nadesan's personal wealth, according to the ICIJ, has been estimated at a whopping $160 million. The records also showed one of Nadesan's shell companies having transferred 31 paintings and other South Asian art pieces in 2018 to an ultra-secure warehouse in Geneva to escape taxes or duties. Other high-profile names released include cricketing legend Sachin Tendulkar and his spouse. Meanwhile, Jordan's King Abdullah II was also named in the leaked documents, showing to have amassed a $100 million property portfolio in the United States and the UK through shell companies. However, spokespersons for the monarch have denied any misdeeds in the purchases, saying that it was public knowledge and the only need for secrecy was due to security concerns. The leaks, however, have caused a stir in Pakistan, with Prime Minister Imran Khan promising a full investigation into all Pakistanis named, including some of his own cabinet. Chief among them are his Water Resources Minister Munis Elahi and Finance Minister Shaukat Tarin. The leaks also exposed how millions of dollars were funneled through shell companies by family members of military top brass as well. Meanwhile, heads of state too were not spared, with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and his family shown to have made property deals worth a staggering $542 million. The files show how the family bought 17 properties, including a $44.8 million office block in London for the president's 11-year-old son.
The Attorney General's Department served charges against 25 suspects before the Colombo High Court trial at bar today pertaining to the Easter Sunday terror attacks. The court was told that over 23,000 charges have been filed, and it is a charge sheet nothing like what the country has ever seen.
The case pertaining to the launch of 10 suicide attacks at 8 locations across the island on the 21st of April in 2019, which has come to be known as the Easter Sunday terror attacks, was taken up for the first time before the Colombo High Court trial at bar today. Judge Damit Totavatta is the chair of the bench, which also consists Amal Ranaraja and Navaratna Marasinghe. 24 suspects who were in remand custody were produced before court today amid heavy security at the Halfsdorp court complex. The 15th accused in the case, however, was not produced before court owing to COVID contraction. After reading out the names of the 25 accused in open court, charges were served. Among the accused are Chief Suspect Mohammadu Ibrahim Mohammadu Naufar, Adam Lebbe, Hayatu Mohammadu Milhan, Mohammadu Ibrahim Sadiq Abdul Haq, Mohammadu Ibrahim Shahid Abdul Haq, and Mohammad Anwar Mohammad Rizkan. 14 suspects were represented in court by private legal counsels. However, 10 suspects, including the chief suspect Naufar Maulavi, sought the appointment of a legal counsel who is proficient in the Tamil language at the cost of the government. Accordingly, the bench ordered the president of the Bar Association to produce a list of attorneys at law who are proficient in the Tamil language before court. After the charges were served, Additional Solicitor General Haripriya Jayasundara, who leads the legal team of the complaint, made an emotional statement about the attacks before court. She told the court that 23,270 charges have been filed by the Attorney General's Department against persons responsible for 268 deaths and causing injury to a further 784 persons. Additional Solicitor General Jayasundara also noted that such a charge sheet has never been produced in the country's history. Whilst expressing expectation that the case will do justice by the people who died in the attacks and to their families, she went on to say that the assistance of the US and Australia was sought in forensic investigations. She said that the Attorney General's department will ensure that all those responsible for the attacks will be brought before the law, sans consideration of race, religion and status. The High Court bench ordered the Commissioner General of Prisons to produce the suspects before court on each day before the case is taken up. However, if that proves to be difficult, the bench said that the suspects should be produced via a video link. The case will be taken up next on the 23rd of November.
Now, health experts said today that the vaccination program targeting people aged 20 to 29 is making steady progress despite certain hurdles encountered, especially in the form of misinformation. They say that even though the vaccine program targeting this age group began 2 or 2.5 weeks ago, over 50% have been partially immunized island-wide, with even 80% of vaccinations seen among them in some districts.
The focus on Sri Lankan health officials is now primarily on inoculating the country's 20 to 29 age group and children between the ages of 12 and 19. The shift comes following the 95% complete inoculation of the country's above 30s. What's more, 11,861,029 people from the total population have been fully vaccinated so far in the island. 2,717,177 people meanwhile are awaiting the second dose. The vaccination drive hasn't been without challenges, the biggest of which to come about recently is misinformation, which threw many among the 20 to 29-year age group off vaccination. Despite what the government calls concerted efforts to mislead the youth, health officials say that the youth are steadily moving towards vaccination.
අද දිනේ වන විට 20ත් 29ත් අතර වයස් කාණ්ඩයේ ලංකාවේ සියලුම දිස්ත්‍රික්කවල පාහේ 50%කට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් එන්නත් කරන්නේ ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව යම් යම් දිස්ත්‍රික්ක කිහිපයක වයස අවුරුදු 20ත් 29ත් අතර ඉලක්ක කණ්ඩායම් වලින් 80%ක ප්‍රමාණයට එන්නත් කරන්නේ සාර්ථකව සිදු කළ දිස්ත්‍රික්ක කිහිපයකුත් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා අපි දැනට වයස අවුරුදු 20ටත් 29ත් අතර කණ්ඩායමට එන්නත් කරන්නේ ලබා දීමට පටන් අරගෙන සති දෙකමාරක් පමණ කාලයක් ගත වෙලා මේ කාලය තුලදී දැන් තම ඉක්මනින් ඕන එන්නත් ලබා ගන්න බව පෙනෙනවා. ඒ සමගම කියන්න ඕනේ සෑම දිස්ත්‍රික්කයකටම අවශ්‍ය සියලුම එන්නත් ප්‍රමාණයන් වයස අවුරුදු 20න් ඉහළ අයට ලබා දිය යුතු පළමු මාත්‍රාවත් දෙවන මාත්‍රාවත් සියල්ලම මේ වන විට දිස්ත්‍රික්කවලට ලබා දී තියෙනවා.
Meanwhile, under the first phase of the child vaccine program, which targets children over 12 years of age with comorbidities, children admitted to the Maharagam Apeksha Hospital were also administered with the Pfizer vaccine for the first time today. Health officials are hopeful of administering the first dose of the vaccine to this age group within the next 2 to 3 weeks and to begin the second dose administration in a month. As such, next in line under the second phase of the child vaccine drive are children aged between 15 and 19. Even though a date is yet to be set for the launch of the second phase, Chief of the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19, Army Commander General Shavendra Silva said that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed them to conduct the drive as soon as the first phase is completed. He added that the President will probably give instructions as to how the second phase of the child vaccine program will be carried out later this week. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services said today that the start date of the booster dose rollout will be announced as soon as the child vaccination program comes to a conclusion. People with health complications in the 30 to 60-year age group, people aged 60 and above, immunocompromised persons and frontline healthcare workers are currently eligible for a booster dose. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health clarified today that it had not issued any guidelines pertaining to the vaccine card.
Vaccination card is issued by the Health Ministry as a proof of vaccination. It should be produced if somebody or if an authority or who is asking for any proof of vaccination. We have seen that certain problems or situations has arisen in the past where vaccination card has been requested by different organizations. We need to emphasize from the Health Ministry side is that any organization who is requesting the vaccination card at your institution, you need to educate and inform and communicate the public or the relevant staff so that they will be carrying the vaccination card as and when required, and Health Ministry will not declare any general rules at this moment to say that this card need to be carried with to a specific place, whether it is public place or not.
Director General of Health Services Dr. Asela Gunawardena today cautioned the public to be mindful of their behaviour when commuting about following the lifting of the curfew. He said that if the public get too complacent about the country's current situation and disregard the health and safety guidelines, the relaxation of the restrictions, which is scheduled to be done on the 15th of this month, will not happen.
With the lifting of the lockdown, people are given the opportunity to return to their usual daily lives. Shops are open, public transport is operating, and the one thing the health experts are pleading that the people do is adhere to the health guidelines. Their warning is very simple. If there is another spike in new cases, the night curfew might not be lifted as scheduled on the 15th.
After reopening the country after 43 days of quarantine curfew, we have observed that some of the citizens not adherent to the health guidelines which we have imposed. Right now we are experiencing about nearly 800 to 1000 positive cases as well as 50 to 40 deaths per day. So in this context that we have opened up the country, it is not a good sign because still there are positive cases inside the country. If we behave like that, this will definitely lead to another outbreak. It is my sincere request again to all the people of this country, adhere to the health guidelines, otherwise we will be not able to open up the country after 15 because still there are lot to be open for the normal functions.
In the meantime, health officials give an update regarding the country's COVID home treatment program, which helped ease the burden on the healthcare system during the peak of the present wave.
නිවසේ සිටම ප්‍රතිකාර ලබා දීමේ පහසුකම් සලසා දී තියෙනවා. අද දවස වන විට 6035ක් රෝගීන් මේ සේවාව ලබා ගනිමින් සිටිනවා. මේ වැඩසටහන ආරම්භ කරාට පස්සේ ලෝක සෞඛ්‍ය සංවිධානය විසින් මේ වැඩසටහන දිගටම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරගෙන යාම සඳහා ඩොලර් මිලියනයක ආධාර මේ වැඩසටහන සඳහා ලබා දුන්නා. ඇත්තටම එය ඉතාමත් අපිට ධෛර්යය දනවන්න. ඒ අනුව මේ වන විට
Acting Director of Tertiary Care Services at the Ministry of Health, Specialist Dr. Ayanti Karunaratne, also explained how access to the home treatment program has been simplified.
සංඛ්‍යාව අඩුවීමත් සමගම අපි අලුතෙන් හඳුන්වා දී තියෙනවා රෝගීන්ට කෙලින්ම මේ සඳහා ලියාපදිංචි වීමේ ක්‍රමයක්. මෙය මොබයිල් ඇප් එකක් විදිහට වගේම පරිගණකය හරහත් සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම ඒගොල්ලන්ට කලින් අපි දුන්නේ මේ 1390 දුරකථනය ඔස්සේ සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න අවස්ථාව ලබා දුන්නේ මේ සඳහා ලියාපදිංචි වූ රෝගීන්ට පමණයි. නමුත් දැන් ඒක අපි 1390ට ඍජු දුරකථන අමතුමක් ගන්නා ඕනෑම පුද්ගලයෙකුට ඒ සඳහා සම්බන්ධ වෙලා ඊට පස්සේ අපි ඔහුගේ යෝග්‍යතාවය මේ සඳහා සුදුසුද කියලා පරීක්ෂා කරලා බලලා ඊට පස්සේ ඔහුව මේ ක්‍රමයට සම්බන්ධ කරගන්නවා. අපි මේ සේවාව වඩාත් පුළුල් කරමින් රෝගීන්ගේ කොවිඩ් වලින් ආසාදනයෙන් පස්සේ ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන් වෙනත් ගැටලු පිළිබඳව සොයා බැලීම සඳහාත් මේ ක්‍රමය වැඩි දුරටත් පුළුල් කරගෙන යනවා.
Meanwhile, an expert in psychology was quizzed on how there could possibly be families in the island which do not want to spend time together in relation to reports of increased domestic disturbances during the lockdown.
පෞල් සම්බන්ධතා ක්‍රියාක විෂමයි. නමුත් ඒක රටකට මම හිතන්නේ ජෙනරලයිස් කරන්න අමාරුයි. ඕනම රටක ඒ විෂමතාවය තියෙනවා. වැඩිපුර පෞල් සතුටු පෞල්. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වුණා ගොඩක් ප්‍රශ්න ඒවි කියලා. නමුත් ඒ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න ආවේ නැහැ ඇත්තටම. අපි දැක්ක දේවල් තමයි සමහර රටවල් වල සමහර සිවිදි හානි කර ගැනීම වගේ දේවල් වැඩි වුණා. මොකද ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ඒක අඩුයි කියන එක.
The all-share price index gained 100.03 points to end at 9,542.33, and the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 3,540.24, following a gain of 0.69 points today. Now, it is also the first time that the ASPI crossed the 9,500 mark. Meanwhile, the market turnover was 3.6 billion rupees. Here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report of today's market performance.
Today we saw a 100-point run in the index today as the ASPI surpassed the all-important 9,500 mark, which was a psychological landmark for the market. So with that, we've stopped at 9,542 points today at the close. Overall, we saw a lot of retail activity in the market. Most retail activity was concentrated on a selected few illiquid counters which moved the index significantly in value. So there seems to be a shift in investor attention where we are seeing some real estate players and capital goods sector players gaining significant ground today, which allowed the index to move to higher ground. Turnover levels, of course, slightly started to decline, where we saw only around 3.6 billion of turnover. Even the number of transactions were around the 33,000 mark.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.